good friends over time, seeking retribution. We got winning on our mind. We've got to cross the line.
West Tigers faithful, episode 21. If we're in Las Vegas this week, we would be legal. This is the unofficial podcast of the fifth best team within the NRL preseason challenge. I'm Jared Reedy, and I'm very, very late to this evening's proceedings. But Joe McCord is with me. How are you, Joe?
I'm excellent. I got the reference there, the fifth place. This might be the first time we've ever completed something and didn't finish ninth or last.
Spectacular, isn't it? Or
Incredible.
first.
It could be a sign. We finished fifth. It's 2025. We last won the comp in 2005. We're going to finish fifth as in the minor premiership and then win the comp.
Fifth is in the minor premiership. Let's get straight into it. Really, just quickly, we advertised this as an episode with Mark Tenos. We just couldn't work out our times. Marky, if you're listening, reach out and we'll have a chat next week. But we're going to talk about Mark anyway, even though he's not here, a little bit later on. Couple of talking points straight off the bat, both to do with player movements. The first one is Justin Olam's potential medical retirement. He's apparently met with the club this week to discuss what we will do with him moving forward. And it looks like pending Frank Molo's release at the Dragons, David Klemmer will be headed to Wollongong. Mac, what are your thoughts on both?
It's kind of like reassuring that things that are happening at the West Tigers have predictability. Like the Olam medical retirement is like kind of what should happen, but in the past those sort of things seem not to. We instead get outcomes like Russell Packer sitting on the sideline for a year and a half with no updates. David Klemmer being moved along is something that should happen, but in the past he would just sit on the sideline for a year and a half with no updates. You know what I mean? Like it's reassuring, it's logical, it makes sense, it's best for all parties. I mean, it's hard to say Justin Olam being medically retired is best for all parties, but the rumor doing the rounds is that he's in line for a fairly juicy gig with the PNG franchise, so I don't imagine that he's going to be lamenting that too hard.
Look, I think he is the most endorsed player in the entire league simply because of his ties to PNG. Look, first off the bat for Just, look, I'm incredibly disappointed for him and for the Tigers, to be honest. At the beginning of last year, he looked like everything we lacked since a man named Tim Simona was putting first try scorer bets on himself. He was everything that we needed in a centre, and look, he had some shaky moments, but at the same time, he was clearly playing injured. But look, a clear class above him was keen for him to be a part of this resurgence. Obviously, there's still an outside chance that he may well be, but this is one of the great cult heroes of the last 10 years. So to see him go out like this is quite disappointing. On the Clem side, we spoke about it in our play review. If you haven't listened, go and have a look. 2023, he was arguably our best player. He was phenomenal. Whereas in 2024, he began to lose some of his effectiveness. We're a little bit concerned about that. Obviously, the club has made a decision to prioritise Sione Fainu, and they also don't want to play him for 14 games because they can't have his salary on the cap for 2026. So, look, I'm just happy that he's found a club, first and foremost, and frees up a spot for us potentially, pending what happens with Molo and the rest. I
hope they upgrade Tim. That's what I'm hoping that they do. Like, I think that he deserves it. I think he's earned it. I think that if he went to the market, he would find many suitors that would give him a top 30 contract. And now we have, if Klemmer walks and Olam gets medically retired, we have 30 free spots in the top 30. Surely they have to upgrade him at that point.
Yeah, I really hope that they do that and they reward a guy that by all reports has absolutely been storming preseason. But if those two blokes leave, there's still 2 spots left. You can talk about personnel if you want, but positionally, what are you looking for?
Back rower center.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want a back rower. Oh, definitely a back rower. I don't necessarily want to go and like splash the market and sign like try to like sign a real big signing. Just a couple of serviceable players, a back rower, and either a center or a backup half would be what I would want.
Yeah, I'm of a similar mindset.
Backup half come hooker type.
Yeah, I don't think that would go astray. I mean, obviously, two spots left, providing you give a spot to a Tim Johansson. I think we definitely need to look at an outside center, somebody that's going to play on the left. I don't know how Naden's going to go with his knee now. Obviously, Adam Dewey, I think I'd prefer to see him in a backup half role. So to find somebody for left center just to cover for a couple of years while Hiamasi Makasini develops, I think is a good one. And obviously that back row position as well. I don't think you bought into it. I sent a message into the server earlier today. Ben Dobbin from Brisbane believes that there is a club that is pushing to sign Tyson Frizzell before round one. I reckon it's a fair chance it's us. Would you take on a 33-year-old Tyson Frizzell?
How long does he have left on his current contract?
Until the end of 26.
Yes.
Me too.
I don't think it would be us though. Ben's only got inside knowledge of Queensland teams.
That's very true. That's very true. But in saying that, I would like for us to be in that queue.
I would bet money he's talking about the Dolphins.
Interesting. Well, that pushes down a player of interest to me anyway in Oren Keeley. I'd like to see that happen. But look, the Dolphins have got a lot of edge forwards. In saying that, they might have a bit of spare cap given Flegler's injury. I know that Felice is playing through the middle as is Cabron these days, so he may well end up there. But look, I hope we're in and around those conversations. It's a position of need. He's been ousted by Kai Pearce-Paul on that right edge. He's close with Marshall. We could do worse.
Without belaboring the point, the reason I think it would be the Dolphins is that Brisbane player movements and rumors around the Brisbane club seem to leak in a different way always. Like we always seem to know what's going on at that club through the media, through the normal sort of routes. So Ben breaking the news makes me think it's not a Brisbane leak, and I don't think he really has any contacts at the Gold Coast. So
time will tell. I just hope that we're in the mix for him. All right, let's talk about these trials. First of all, we apologize that we weren't here to review trial 1 in full, but trial 2 was always the one that pretty much mattered. We'll just touch on trial 1 really, really quickly. As everybody knows, we went down to the Dogs. I think it was clear that the club is trying to push the same attacking and defensive system in all grades. But with the gift of hindsight, sometimes inexperienced players can take a little bit more time to gel and execute. And I think that was witnessed by some flat attack and the inability to create a lot of opportunities. There was some individual brilliance from Lachlan Galvin down that short side, which was wonderful. And then some lovely touches from Valentino Tavana, who looked excellent. But for the most part, you look at trial 2 and the way that they were trying to manipulate the ruck a little bit more. And it was clear that the quality of player was on show there. So as time goes on and the boys get used to the system, I hope that we can see them manipulate the ruck in a similar manner in lower grades. I thought the defensive systems held up for the most part. I thought the tries typically came from errors from individuals as opposed to the system itself. And furthermore, I've got to give them their flowers. A couple of the boys, really showed their class. Jared Haywood, Solomon Asakuru had some nice touches. Obviously, Tavana, we spoke about there. Tim Johansson was tireless. Noah did some good things. But the Dogs, oh my God, they have some absolute guns coming through their ranks. Jack Todd, Jack Underhill, Ratu Rinakama, who signed a contract this week. Cassius Tia, who looks like he's going to be a star, providing he can transition to the middle because he's a big boy. They got some really, really good players. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was real. The first trial was really encouraging. A lot of people were doomsaying in the wake of it, but I think a lot of the people that were commenting on social media about that performance being a negative for us underestimate how strong the Bulldogs are in their depth, in their pathways. They're about 2 years ahead of us when it comes to like pushing through pathways into the actual like, flag and New South Wales Cup level squads. So, and we're coming off of New South Wales Cup wooden spoon, NRL wooden spoon. I think Flegg just missed the finals, but like at the end, if I remember correctly. I don't think either of our SG ball sides made the finals last year either, did they? Or did West?
No, I think
Balmain came last.
yeah, we got none of our SG ball sides did.
So the fact that we were pretty much neck and neck with them until the very end there. I mean, we were neck and neck with them for the entirety of the game. And they also ran with a much larger squad than we did. So they would have had more energy towards the end of the game. I think it was an even contest in the end. I think both clubs would have come out of that thinking that they were no further ahead of each other than the other. And I think that that's fantastic. I thought Kit Lalili was a completely different human being. I was astonished by his performance.
Let's talk about him in depth a little bit later.
Yeah, we will.
Players in focus, but yes, I agree. Individually, he was sensational.
Yeah, we will. I thought, Noah Johansson was very impressive for a dude who's had never even played a New South Wales Cup game. I think like you could definitely see the off season that he had was real. Like what he was saying about how hard he's worked and how hard the whole squad have worked. Coming off the back of that being our last episode, you could see it. You could definitely see that everybody had ripped in. Body shapes were different. Sizes were different. Some guys looked leaner like Matamua and some guys looked bigger like Kit, but for the better for the most part for all of them. So I was encouraged by it. I didn't take really any negatives away from it. We were weak in the areas where we are gonna be able to cover when the whips are cracking during the actual season. So there was really nothing negative to take away from it from my perspective.
Yeah, look, again, a couple of momentary defensive lapses, some inside shoulders, considered some tries
from players who are not gonna play first grade, right?
Yeah, that's right. But at the same time, this is early days, and so I was listening to Mitchell Pearce and Todd Carney's podcast 6s and 7s, which is quite good if you want a bit more in-depth analysis. And those boys sort of said, look, sometimes you can have a blowout in the trials, and sometimes it build your steely resolve, and the focus on defense comes. But in saying that, I think our defense has been okay in patches. We'll talk about that in full right now because we're about to review the trial. Obviously, a good win, gets the monkey off the back, so to speak, as opposed to last year when we played the Dragons and we looked terrible. But let's just go through it. First and foremost, the Eels were bad. Okay, they had a lot of drop ball at crucial moments, which sort of relieved a bit of pressure. There was some times where they made some absolutely atrocious defensive efforts, but at the same time, the Tigers have to be commended. Their effort areas were up. They looked fit, and there was a clear will to win. So in terms of the things that I look for in trials, we had 3 of those. The last one was just defense on our edges. I am concerned, but we will talk about that a little bit more later. Let's talk about our attack first. Our attacking shapes are concentrated through the middle. It's very conservative when we ruck the ball out. Quite often it is one out, but we're clearly trying to manipulate defenses by playing through the middle when we're in midfield or in our red zone. And we play at speed and with a clear plan, and I like that. And that's a credit to Brett Hodgson and a credit to Benji Marshall. But what this tells us straight away is that Api Coruscant is going to be our most important player this year. And he'll have the weapons to attract defenders. So Terrell close to the line, Fanua with his late footwork, the way he sort of poked his head through was exceptional. I reckon Alex Twal might get a trial 2 this year, as long as they're just not giving him one-off hit-ups off the ruck on play 4-10 out. But Royce Hunt obviously as well. But we will live and die by Api's decision-making. The only problem is that Api's not there round 1. So you tell me what you saw from Talon De Silva and the decisions that he made on Friday night.
Yeah, I agree with your appraisal, it looked like a side that was built to play around the strengths of Appy and Jerome Luai, and was being run without them. So, you know, the parts of the game plan that didn't necessitate their skills, we looked good, and the parts where it necessitated their level of skill, we were clunky. I think I think that there's probably two possibilities with Talon. This is the second year in a row where I've seen Talon come back from the off season looking slightly worse than he did when the season ended. So I have thoughts that potentially Talon hasn't quite worked out how to keep his level high or continuously improve throughout his off-season camp, his off-season prep. But he didn't look great. There's no way to sugarcoat it. You know, Talon's a player who, if he's going to carve out a lot of minutes on the field in first grade right now with the amount of defensive liability that he brings, he needs to be on point with his attack basics. He needs to be making the right choice about when to go short side, the right choice about when to dart out and take on the line, and his distribution needs to be crisp. So many really well set backline movements were completely, I don't want to sound too harsh, but were basically just rendered completely incapable of success because he threw the ball directly at or slightly behind the receiver. There was at least 3 or 4 plays that I saw where if he put the ball simply out in front and Galvin was able to catch it on the hop, Galvin would have skipped around the outside and we would have had an overlap. He's a kid who the reason I mentioned what I mentioned first, you know, the off-season possibilities, his distribution usually is on point. It's usually one of his strengths. So, I mean, it's just one game. So I don't want to like say that he's, you know, not gonna be up to it, but I think what we actually saw probably would put Hope ahead of him in the pecking order to start the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think Tristan had some really good moments, and obviously it paid off after 3 or 4 sets on Parramatta's line, and he comes up with a try and he barks all day long, and twice I've been impressed by his defensive applications.
That's the reason for me. Yeah. I think Tristan, he scored a try, yes, and I think his energy on the field and his visibility to the viewer, you know, makes people go, oh, he stands out, right? But when I really rewatched the game slowly, he was about on par with Talon in attack, but his defensive intent's completely different level. He leads the line speed. He brings a fire. Talon's body language on the field was a little bit nervous and conservative. Tristan's body language was, I'm gonna take the bull by the horns. And I just feel like that's more likely to be what we need now than, you know, training wheels.
The only problem is one's on a part-time deal, one's on a full-time, and the latter has been told that he's the heir to Api Coruscant's throne. So the Tigers find themselves in an interesting situation, and I don't know.
I wouldn't be outright surprised if Tristan doesn't get upgraded, because we don't actually have that much depth in the top 30 at hooker.
No, we don't. Obviously, Jared Hayward's coming through, but he's still an SG ball player at the minute,
and he's not on the top 30. So, like, you know, you could upgrade Tristan and give him a 1-year prove-it deal without, you know, him getting in Jared Hayward's developmental way.
That is possible. I guess we will see come Tuesday when the team gets named. Now, we spoke about much of the early plays, and the focus is through the middle. Again, that speaks to Uppy's strengths. But once they manipulate the ruck in a certain manner and they get it to where they want, whether it be a 7-3 split or otherwise, they push the footy wide. The play that I continue to see is Lachlan Galvin sweeping from right to left, playing at first receiver, trying to get the attention typically of the opposite half, which stands at about 3 or 4 in. He will double pump, and then he will try and get the 5/8, which in this instance was, the left-sided playmaker in this instance, Adam Dewey, a flat 4. So he has himself, back rower, centre winger against back rower, half centre winger. This is ready-made for Jerome Luai and something that is straight out of Penrith's playbook. I think you're going to see it a lot. Now, if Luai sees what he wants and he gets flat 4 open side, I would fully expect him to play footy there. He's got some great attacking weapons. Obviously, Samuela, Adam Dewey, I think will be there, and Jarrell Skelton, who we'll get to in a little bit. But I would also expect him to do what, Jerome Luai does when he's very confident, and that's bounce off his left foot, play back to the right side, and likely kick in for a guy like Jerome Buller. So that's sort of the main shape that I sort of took away. I thought that the Skelton try was unreal, where Galvin threw the double pump. He absolutely shoved Kelma Tuolangi out of the way and then threw a nice pass to Dewey, who then kept the ball on for Skelton. I was quite impressed with our shapes, particularly down that left edge. What did you think of those?
Yeah, I think that the game plan was good. It's easy to say that it was bad because, we butchered a lot of tries. I think just sort of overall, I think we were 40-point better team than Parramatta on the night. And we only won, what was it, in the end, 30-18 or something. Which, when you realize you've got Appy and Jerome coming back in, makes you pretty excited. I did a bit of a deep dive and I posted up on Twitter about Galvin. Obviously Galvin's running game is a big threat. And because of that, I think he's still learning how to make a better decision, like to choose when not to. He holds onto the ball in scenarios where he should be passing earlier. There was at least 2 occasions that I saw him try to draw a player that didn't need to be drawn because there was already an overlap. Now, I think that could be partially because he's training a system that's designed to be NRL quality defenses. And Parramatta's defense was so bad on the night that they were presenting overlaps where there probably weren't overlaps in the training drills, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult for him to probably see eyes up in that respect because his eyes up play is off the cuff, run around, right? And so adding the ability to have eyes up early pass to an Adam Dewey who's already got an overlap is obviously something he hasn't actually figured out. Coming through the grades as a running back rower / 5'8", it's not really a thing that he's ever had to do. He's a draw and pass guy or a beat a man with his feet guy. So if he's going to transition into a genuine NRL 5'8", that's something he has to work on. But like I said earlier, a lot of his impact on this game was diminished by the poor distribution that he received from the dummy halves. He could have had an absolute stormer of a game if 4 plays went slightly differently. If a couple of talents passes went out in front of him, or if he had thrown the ball earlier to Adam Dewey or a cut out to Jarrell Skelton here or there, he might have had a 3 try assists game or a 4 try assists game. So and he's obviously gonna get better distribution from Coruscant. There's no 2 ways about that. So I'm pretty excited about Galvin. I think there's a very good chance that he's going to have an incredibly good second year. I'm just as excited about Latu Fainu. I think Latu Fainu is actually going to really put pressure on Lachlan now. He looks like a first grader now. His hamstring issues seem to be behind him. He's not playing with strapping, which is an incredibly good sign. He's running with confidence. He plays very differently to Lockie. The way he plays, being very straight, might actually make him slightly more suitable to Jerome Luai, who is a bit more like Lockie in that he likes to, hold the ball and run a bit more, and he likes to get across the field a bit. So having that foil who straightens up the attack might actually be more suitable. Lockie's obviously going to have the position from round 1, but I think, if the team doesn't perform well in the first few rounds, there's a really good chance now not because of Lockie, but because of how impressive Latu looks, that you might actually end up seeing that Latu goes into the halves and Lockie moves to back row, which, you and I both agree is something we would be excited to see.
Certainly. I think you nailed it. Because Lachlan never played jersey flag or reserve grade, and was always back to do what he saw and was in a poor quality team, the urgency to either play straight or to throw that pass, he hasn't really had to develop that because he's either been able, as you said, to rely on his physical gifts in schoolboy footy or in SG ball, or just been given the license to back himself by Benji Marshall. Whereas Latu, has cut his teeth in, for a couple of years. I know he made his cup debut in 2023 for Manly. He sort of jumped between grades last year for the Tigers. It's sort of been a bit up and down for Latu, but Latu's, greatest strength was always playing so square and looking immaculate off those sort of block shapes. I think you're right. I think there might be an opportunity where if we are quite wishy-washy or too sideways, that you see Galvin either moved or, hypothetically benched. That would cause a lot of issues, I think, from one Isaac Moses. But, if we need somebody to play straight, I think Latu could be that guy. That said, I agree with you. I think the stage is set for Jerome Luai and Api Coruscant, but at the same time, there is so much to like about this structure, and they've clearly planned it for Lachlan to really inject himself and involve himself when he is ready to do so.
I think that there's a chance that, the 14 jersey is a big question for the Tigers at the moment. There's, you and I have had conversations about, does Mason play 14? There's questions about whether Bird starts at 13 or is he the 14? There's questions about, is Dewey's, actual best role here as a 14 because of his utility value. And I think most people are in agreement that Latu Fainu should be the 14. And then on top of that, there's can we run that utility player plus a backup hooker? So there's a lot of question marks around the bench at the Tigers, and I think it might be a good idea for them to maybe try that system that I've seen work really, really well for other teams in the past, where you start off with somebody like a Galvin at 6, and you bring Latu on around the 25, 30-minute mark, and you don't take Galvin off. You move Galvin into the 13 role at that point and push Latu straight into the 6. I feel like that would cause serious issues to opposition teams, especially if you can actually get Latu coming on and providing a change-up point of difference. Like if you could shift the whole game plan around that time, you're going to stress the opposition defense something fierce with the point of difference that he brings with that straightening of the attack. It felt like it was around that time on the weekend when they brought him on, and you could see how big of an impact it had. And suddenly we were we're playing different shape. We were more incisive, and the Para defense started to actually fall apart. And prior to that, they were actually numbering up quite well, and they didn't seem like they were that under stress from our attacking shapes. I would like to see that. I think personally, I would probably like to see that from round one. I don't think that you have to necessarily wait to make a decision about whether or not Latu Fainu is a good enough player to try to find a way to inject him into the game. I think he's already proven it. I think he's in our top 17 any day of the week. And the question Benji needs to ask himself, and all of the coaches need to ask himself, is how do you get him into the 17? Is it through that way? Is it through him playing the left center position instead of Dewey? Is he a potential 13 option? I feel like you have to get him into the side at this point.
I think it's really tough because if you want to win now, and I get it, there's obviously a desire to win now, then Latu is absolutely in your 14 position. But if you want to do what's best for the player and the club in the long term, there is an argument to be made that Latu's best served going back to cup and playing in the halves. So from that perspective, the club's got a really, really tough decision to make. Furthermore, I think the fact that Uppy playing 80 last year was what caused him to miss the most tackles in the entire league. We know what Latu looks like at 9. As a result, you might need to run with, talent on the bench in place of him. And, there's not really much room for him there. Look, the good thing is that there are actual headaches from a selection perspective that we have not had in a long time. That's exciting. But who they specifically play or pick for 14 is going to be quite interesting. And it may just differ from week to week in terms of what they think they'll need, in terms of what they come up against. I think that the logical option is looking us in the face, and it's Lachlan Gowman in the back row. But quite frankly, I don't think he's up to it defensively. And we'll talk about defense soon. But before that, I want to talk about the cartel, the middle troika of Alex Twal, Fanua Bole, Terrell May. Excellent first stint from all of them. And Terrell looked like he's true to his word. He looked better as his stint wore on. But Alex Twal was phenomenal as well, might I add. And Fanua did some great things, poking his head through, using his footwork, and defensively looked a little bit more solid, which I was happy with as well. What I want to touch on now is you actually had a few minor concerns rather around Terrell's technique in defense.
Yeah, I feel like that triumvirate there that you mentioned. What did you call them? The cartel. It's a strong middle for us. It's a strong middle, but I didn't like the way that they started the game. I think Terrell and Bole both got better as the game wore on. Bole was very strong in his second stint. Terrell just got stronger as the game wore on. Twal was Twal. He was strong. I honestly thought he was the pick of the forwards. I think everyone was singing May's praises because the commentators sort of realized that he was still on the field about 35 minutes into the first half and went, "Oh, Tigers fans, you better be happy about this," which is, I am. Don't get me wrong, I am. But Twal was very impressive. And
He was the pick of the bunch. I was really surprised that he was the one that got pulled off first. I thought, if anything, he looked tireless.
Yep, I was surprised by that. I was also surprised that Royce Hunt played less than 20 minutes in total. But, whatever, it's a trial game. We'll see what happens in round one. To your point about May's defensive technique, I don't want it to seem nitpicky, but, I personally am the sort of person, in the real world, when I'm talking to, my children, when I'm talking to the team that I have at work, and when how I think about myself, I'm always looking for, those little areas of improvement. I'm somebody who focuses heavily on just being slightly better all the time, to create that continuous improvement. And Terrell, to me, has one thing he needs to improve. And if he can improve that one thing, he is an Origin level front rower. And that's his first up contact in defense. So this happened in the very first set, the very first defensive set. We put a decent kick in, and Parramatta coming out of their own end. Zach Lomax, centre, takes a one-out hit up. It was off a stock standard play the ball, and there was no backline shape. All the Para players were just milling around like Brown's cows, so it was no threat. Alex Seyfarth got out of marker and prevented Lomax from taking space up the middle. So Lomax pivoted outside, ran straight into three middles. Ran straight into May, Twal, and the third defender was Samuela Fainu.
Okay.
May made the first contact. He was in the chair, as you put it. He had his center of gravity was far too high. Lomax got slightly low, not like bullocking run. Like it wasn't like he was Matt Utai. He's a tall dude. But he propped and got under May and managed to push May back and find his front chest to chest with the middle in the first defensive set of the game for us. For me, that's that was Terrell May's first tackle he made as a West Tiger. I would have expected him to be ferocious. I've got a center running straight at me. I'm a middle. I'm the enforcer of this team. I want to lead by example. For his very first tackle as a West Tiger, as a pack leader, as a middle, to end up getting pushed back, Zach Lomax finding his front, I didn't like it. It showed two issues. It showed a lack of defensive technique, and it also showed a lack of defensive intent. I didn't like it. I really hope that he took it very personally. Maybe he did, because he did play really well after that. But then again, later in the game, there was another issue. But in that tackle, I also did not like Samuel Afanu's work. I liked Twel's work. Twel's contact brought Lomax to the ground, and that was what he was there to do. He went hips, and Lomax was going nowhere, which was even more of a reason why May or Samuela should have, really tried to roll him over to his back, get him on his back, slow that ruck down. Samuela just sort of like was lurking around, like not knowing really what to do. And there was an instance there where Lomax was sort of coming down and had pushed May back. And Samuela could have easily just gone in shoulder to the ball and like pushed him onto his back and actually slowed the tackle down. But Samuela kind of just hesitated. He just didn't really know what to do. And hesitation, like to me,
Can't do that.
No, not at the NRL level, and it's also so indicative of the defensive weaknesses of this club for years. Like that like almost like they get confused. They don't know what the correct thing to do is at the correct time in a tackle. You see a team like Penrith or the Roosters or Melbourne, their tackle technique, their decision making is it's just rote. It's like, I know what to do here. I'm going to show intent. If you get penalized from showing intent, that's one thing, right? And that's been maybe the knock on Alex Seyfarth. But what ended up happening was Samuela hesitated. Lomax got past the point of past the perpendicular and was heading to the ground. And then Samuela made a decision to try to get into the contact and ended up collapsing on top of Lomax. Lomax had burrowed under May's legs, so May's ended up like in a mount position over Zach's shoulders. Samuela's flopped on top of him. Alex has brought him down by the hips and rolled away, and then suddenly Lomax sticks his head up and he's staring straight at the referee with two middles on his back, and he's found his front. So he's had the dominance, like he was the dominant player in that ruck. And he's staring at the ref while the players are just trying to unmount him. All he does is try to get to his feet. The referee's got no patience, but then May's stuck on him. Penalty, right? First set of 6, penalty, all stems from May not initiating strong contact on a centre in the first tackle that he ever makes as a Tiger. I really don't like it. I don't mind it if I'm there. I'm showing him that on video and saying, never ever do that again. And I trust he won't, because it's such an easy teachable moment. I just hope they have.
Well, it actually led to points, not in that first set, but on a tackle where there was an offload by
later in the game.
I can't remember, which
it was
led which led to a Jack Williams try, correct?
It was Moretti, I believe.
Good player, Luca.
Yes, he's a good player, but he's a bench forward.
Absolutely. But
later in the so I'll just talk about that one briefly. So what happened again? Very much the same. In fact, he actually made worse contact, but that makes sense because Moretti was fresh legs forward, so that's a little more forgivable.
Yep.
But he got caught in the chair again. Moretti just bulldozed through him. He's like pushed him back. To May's credit, he didn't get flattened. He didn't get knocked on his ass. That's good. That's an improvement on some of the forwards that we've seen in the past. But like what ended up happening was, again, it wasn't just May to blame in the tackle. We had him, Talon, and the third man in that tackle was, who was the Jack Bird, I believe. So Moretti makes contact with May. May falls slightly backwards, sort of pivots because he's got a high center of gravity, and Moretti gets under him. It's being the low man is something that they train endlessly in the NFL. Get low, be the low man. You end up with winning the contest. That's the goal. Moretti spins around where Lomax tried to find his front straight away. Moretti didn't. Moretti took the space, spun around, immediately looked for the offload. And Jack Bird's, just also behind at that point, trying to make contact. So we've got Bird and May both upright behind Moretti, trying to just hold him upright. Talon comes in from the other side. And as the third man, his conditioning is just to take the legs. As the third man, you bring the man down. But, he's not experienced enough to be able to adapt on the fly, obviously. And his just conditioning sets in, he goes low. And then Moretti's just got his arm free because he's just got nobody wrapping. Pops an offload. He's just drawn 3 men, 10 out from the line, and yet two passes later, Jack Williams goes over with a really nice ball. But like there was going to be an overlap. There was going to be 3 overlaps on that play once that offload came because he drew 3 defenders. Again, all because May didn't get lower. May didn't make strong contact on a player who's supposed to be weaker than him. Like, there's no way a middle should be dominated by either Lomax or Moretti, especially our premier middle. If our premier enforcer middle is losing contact battles like that, we're going to see a lot of problems. But like I said before, it's teachable. It's something that, like, it's not rocket science. It's like, get lower than the guy you're trying to tackle, and you won't get knocked backwards. It's that simple. Get lower. Just get lower, Terrell. That's all it comes down to. Yep. And you got to train Talon and Sam Weller as well. But like their issues wouldn't have happened had Terrell just got lower in both of those tackles.
Well, there's your task, Terrell. Bend your back. 2 players that did bend their back. You mentioned one just before. Jack Bird and Sione Fino. I thought they were excellent off the bench, as was Royce Hunt. I'm really, really excited to see what those 3 boys do together when they get on the field each week. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I loved that. I thought Jack Bird was outstanding. I'm very.
How good did he look?
Yeah, he was.
You know what? He engages in a bit of the dark arts.
Yes, he does.
You see when we were in the red zone, sort of 5-10 out, and he just hold on to the third man in, hold on to the jersey. Riley Smith was going like this, hammer fisting. And I reckon that's a clear ploy to try and pull a player out. So that way Appy's got a bit more jagged defensive line to play with. So keep an eye on that. I reckon that we'll be the first club that'll be penalised for that because we are the West Tigers.
Yeah, let's not manifest that, Jared.
Look,
I thought. Sorry, go ahead.
If I could go, Royce did everything that you expected. Ran off the back fence. The Leichhardt faithful absolutely loved it. I would have liked to have seen him play more, but he also played a lot of minutes in the All-Stars game, in which he looked pretty good. So. It might have just been they wanted to manage him, nurse him through, get him right for round 1, because Marshall's already said that he wants him to play more minutes. So I keep an eye on what's going on there. I thought Sione Fino looked phenomenal. He's gone from a guy that, you know, in even New South Wales Cup could occasionally have the odd negative moment defensively. He was sensational. The shot that he put on.
A thumper.
In the, I think it was the second half, was exceptional.
Yeah, and the commentator's like, I thought that was mostly Lockie Galvin there. Galvin.
How did he see that? And then they replayed it, and you just see Sione absolutely murdering, folded him like a deck chair. And look, Jack Bird goes without saying, he was great. I guess just with Jack, we're just going to have to manage him. He looks fit and he looks really, really excited to play.
He grabbed at the hammy. Did you say he grabbed at the hammy?
And the shoulders. That's
the shoulder, was it? Yeah, they grabbed at the shoulder.
We're just going to have to manage him as best as we could. But let's just talk about defense for a little bit. Now, you've mentioned, obviously, Terrell not bending his back, but for the most part, I thought that our defense in the middle has been okay. In both trials, I think our wrestle and our contact has looked heaps better. There's been a clear desire to get the ball carrier on his back, and it's actually been quite refreshing to see. I thought our line speed trial 1 wasn't great. I thought our line speed trial 2 was really, really good.
Yeah, agreed.
We look like we're going to employ a sliding defensive mechanism. So what you'll see is that you'll see the ball sort of shift to an edge. Our boys will then try and slide across, try and get even numbers, and then they will try and push forward. I would anticipate that will happen quite often. I think you'll see us push players out the sideline quite often as well, providing that we get numbers. Now, there was a couple of times, particularly down that right edge, where Alex Seafarth didn't get on his bike and get to the half where it was required to get to 4-on-4 and to give us a fighting chance. As a result, you know, guys like Twiddle, who realistically is a reserve grader, had a really, really simple job to do, and Isaiah Iyongi, you know, also had simple jobs. So against a team like Fletcher Sharp, like at the Knights, who is an absolute fucking lightning bolt, Kalen Ponga swinging, Dylan Lucas punching holes between Seafarth and Galvin, Bradman Best, who's an Origin player, and Greg Marju, who is absolutely devastating on his day, it was a little bit disappointing to see. Now, I understand it's a trial. You're going to have to work things through, and there's a couple of weeks to really, really tweak that. But we've heard that there's been a lot of drills really focused on working our edges. To not see them number up a couple of times against a well below average Parramatta team was a grave concern for me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, Newcastle have a big threat. It's their left. We have a big weakness. Is that right? If I know anything from being a purveyor of the pugilistic arts, what I mean is like fighting, MMA, boxing. It's that quite often, if you know what your weakness is and your opponent knows what your weakness is, only one of you trains for that purpose, right? So like if we know what they're going to go after and they know what they're going to go after, they don't know what we're going to go after, and we can we should be able to actually like build a game plan that's just like ad hoc for covering that. So, and in the past, to be honest, I feel like we've done that quite well. Like when teams seem to have like a really clear advantage over us in certain areas, we seem to be able to shut down a single player. And I think if you shut down Ponga, you probably shut down that left edge for the most part. And we have shut down Ponga before. There have been games where he's carved us to shreds, but there have been a few times where we've managed to come up with a game plan to pretty much shut him down too. So I don't know. We'll see. Flip a coin. I think that the main focus for the Tigers against the Knights has to be finding where they're weak and doing a better job of exploiting them than they do of exploiting us. I think you mentioned in Discord you think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think that's a fair assumption. I would only be being a contrarian if I disagreed with you. The only caveat I would say to that is that quite often when you feel like it's going to be a high scoring game, it ends up being the opposite. But like all logic seems to indicate that should be the case. Their left edge is vulnerable. Marzu's a terrible defender. I think we haven't seen the full power of our full strength right side attack either. We haven't actually seen Taruvi yet. We haven't seen like Galvin actually. We haven't seen Bula, and he's going to be right side dominant, I think, in most of the shapes. We might just carve them to pieces, and that might be the way to go about it. Because if we can actually strike the first blow or two and actually like get them, momentum and game feel. If we can actually get their heads down, then it might, the best form of defense is often attack, as they say. So, look, I'm excited. I think we're going to win. I really do. Like, I mean, I know we're instilled favorites, so I think the line might have come back to even now. But, and a lot of people are like, "What? How are we favorites?" I think
That's me. That's me.
A lot of people with Jared Reedy. I think we've got a way better spine. I think we've just got like a way better spine. I think that we should be able to beat them everywhere. They have one advantage over us, and I think we have advantages over them everywhere aside from that one area of the field.
I love your positivity. Now we will preview this game in full next week. I will just say that it's going to start and finish in the forwards. Both teams are going to play downhill, providing that their packs lay the platform. They've got Jacob Saifidi, Leo Thompson, these sorts of guys through the middle. I think Tyson Frizzell's playing a bit of 13. They've obviously got guys like Schiller and Marju who are going to carry the ball out of their end. So, but on the flip side, obviously we have Maytwell, Bolle. We've got guys like Skelton and Taruva that are going to rock the ball out of our end. So it's simply going to come down to who can get on top first, and where the momentum begins to flow. Now, next section, moving on, just quickly, just to wrap trials. If you compare this to last year, it was absolutely fucking diabolical. We were unfit. We looked directionless. We looked slow, and we
were favourites for the wooden spoon after the trials.
That's right. We were leaking like a sieve. You compare it to this year. If our issues are simply just our back rowers getting on their bikes so that way they can number up and they can give us a fighting chance when teams play out the back, I'm confident that we will improve. So, we have reason to be optimistic. How optimistic the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season will determine that. But we can sit here now and go, okay, all right. It looks like they put the work in that they said that they had. Do you agree?
100%. But before we move on, I just want to just quickly touch on the right side defense that you were talking about. I think that, if we slide against Newcastle, they'll probably punish us. I think that it's one game where you probably switch it up. I think that they should come up and in. They should force Ponga to pass as much as possible. Don't let him beat us with his feet. Smash him. If he passes and beats us, great. Leave him on the ground. You know what I mean? Like, that's the game plan here. And then, against other teams, maybe go back to a different approach. But because I saw on the weekend a fair few times where you seem to think it's intention. I looked at it as hesitation in the defense, where we didn't clamp and didn't create that like outside shell. And that's when Parramatta scored. And as you rightly pointed out, like, they were a way worse left side attack than what we're about to face with Newcastle.
Yep, and you saw what they did to the Roosters, who were full
Mhm.
strength. So get ready for that. Let's talk about some players in focus. We have 4 here. Let's try and keep this quick, and then we'll get on the pathways, because otherwise we're going to start boring people. Heath Mason played both trials. Give me a quick wrap up of where you think he's at and what you think he can do this year.
Looks like he's had an excellent offseason. He looks to me like, considering his age, I feel like his ceiling has gone up, right? Like, where I thought his ceiling was versus where I now think it was different. It just goes to show, to me, the value of just putting in hard work, the work ethic. He's a guy who you can just tell he's just a tireless worker. He works on his effort areas. He works on his body. I believe that I can see in him that he's a student of the game. I think he's the sort of player who's going to get every ounce out of his skill. By the end of his career, he's not the sort of guy who's going to leave anything off on the park by the end of his career. And with some luck, he might be quite special. What he has to work on is clear as day, and that's just his defensive kick, his bomb taking. But as a kid who played a lot of halves, he's obviously going to have a natural ball playing ability that we still haven't really quite seen yet. I think a lot of the shapes that were run in the trials were, Appy, Jerome, Buller designed, rightfully so. So not really designed to play to his strengths really whatsoever. I think if he pushes himself through and proves himself, we will have to obviously adapt a few different plays that might even bring him to a different level. But the step, the willingness to embrace contact and attack, the speed off the mark. If he gets the ball in space, he's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. And what I really like about him is just how different he is to Jareem. Like, they're just night and day, and I don't mean that in a racist way, but they're just they're just completely different players. Like, Jareem's cool as a cucumber, felt, moves like he's just lazily just going about his work. And Mason's just all violence type runner, just hit the ground, 1 foot in the ground and straighten up and smash into contact. And I think as Mason progresses, it's going to become quite a polarizing debate amongst Tigers fans between those two, because there's a lot of people out there who get put off by Buller's on-field body language, and Mason is just the tonic to the things that people don't like about Jareem. And I know you're in Camp Jareem, so you go ahead.
I am in Camp Jareem, but there is absolutely a place for both of these boys in this 17. Look, I've watched Heath play since he was a 6-year-old. It was always clear that he was destined for great things, and he's always worked hard, and he's always been a class above.
What are you watching 6-year-olds for, Jared?
He used to play with my brother.
Oh, okay.
Funnily enough, they were childhood friends. Look, Heath for me reminds me of Connor Watson. Connor coming through, played a bit of 1, played a bit of 6, played a bit of 9, played a bit of 13. I think that Heath can be that guy, but I also think that there is an opportunity for him to come off the bench, and we use him like Melbourne used to use Ben Hampton. And you play Billy Slater as the fullback down the right edge, and you play Heath Mason down the left, or Ben Hampton down the left and Jahream Buller down the right. Now, I would really like to see the club build his utility skills this year. He played a bit of 9 when up. He got binned in Spoon Bowl. He did some good things there. He's obviously grown up playing in the halves, and as a result, if he builds out his skill set at 9 and defending in the middle, then 13 is going to come quite naturally for him. I think that's absolutely his place. I think that'd be wonderful to see. But in saying that, if there comes a time where he makes an irrepressible case for the number 1 jersey, then absolutely I understand that he will take Jahream's spot. I just think that Jahream at the moment is the fullback that we need, and the guy that has the strong combinations and has this sheer game breaking ability, but is also just so safe. I know that a lot of his cleanup work went away a little bit last year, but I think a lot of that was due to his shoulders that he was clearly playing injured with. So
why didn't he play trials?
Because he was rehabbing his shoulder. But if you listen,
so he's still injured.
If you listen to Andrew Voss, apparently it was him that got the appendix surgery, not Sania Taruva.
Yeah,
but then Bulldog Richie
Taruva.
comes out today and says that it was doubled down and said it was Taruva. So, look, I
Maybe
don't
it was
know.
both of them.
Yeah, that's right. Look, possibly. That army camp must have taken quite its toll. But look, I'm not too sure. But to go back to Heath Mason, it was amazing to see him not miss a single tackle. He made every single tackle, and he had to tackle some big boys when he dealt with some line breaks. It's just catching those bombs.
He's
but
a good tackler.
I think he is absolutely our 14 moving forward, and I really hope he develops in that manner.
I think you just want him to be a 9 because you think he's going to be a good 9. I think that's your secret thing here. I think you look at him, you look at his shape, you look at his skills, you look at his speed off the mark, and you see a 9, and you want him to cross train him as a 9. I don't think you actually rate Buller as much as you think you do. I think you just really think Heath Mason should play 9. Now, I am of the view that you might be right. Like, you could 100% be right about Heath Mason. I think you are 100% right that he would make a very excellent number 14 for us right now, especially if they do start training him as a 9 and they do start actually like giving him those reps. But if I'm Heath Mason, I'm saying, fuck that. I'm going to be Australian Kangaroos fullback. And what I'm looking at is a player who, when he makes a decision like that, he makes that happen. You ever play Madden, Jared?
Oh, many times.
You know how when you get rookies in Maddens, they have a development trait? He's got a superstar development trait. That's why I think Heath Mason is going to eclipse Jahream Buller. If Jahream Buller had superstar development trait, he wouldn't have had second-year syndrome. The best players of all time don't usually suffer from second-year syndrome.
Let's wait and see what happens. I think Heath's going to play plenty of grade this year, and
also, I think Jahream Buller would be an unbelievable left center.
But I reckon that Buller would be a better center and Mason, like, as opposed to.
I personally do. Look, if I'm Benji Marshall, I'm at the club and I'm making a decision. Jahream Buller's running out with the fullback jersey on his back in round 1, because I think it would be unreasonable to take that jersey away from him. But I'm also sitting there in the back of my mind going, I think that it's a matter of time before Jahream Buller is wearing number 4 and Heath Mason's wearing number 1.
Time will tell. Let's have a look. Main thing is it again, hopefully if Heath continues on his current trajectory, there's more selection headaches. That's always good because it brings the best out of every single player. Kit Laulea, he said he looked like a different person, and I agree. His leg speed and his intent through the middle, he looks stronger. He looks more like a man, quite frankly. There was so much to like in both games, but particularly in that first trial where he was far and away our best forward. But in that second trial, he backed it up. And, there's a fair school of thought now that if we run with, I was going to say Ben Hunt, Royce Hunt, Jack Bird and Sione Fainu on our bench, that Kit's foreseeably the next man up. What are your thoughts there?
I think that Kit's probably going to specifically enter the frame if Royce Hunt isn't available. I think they're going to be 1A and 1B of their role. he plays the same sort of way, like which is new. Like runs like a freight train, and he's built like a bowling ball all of a sudden, which is wild. Like he was last year, he looked like, I don't know, like just a dude that like came off the construction site. Now he looks like, he looks like Royce Hunt. He's built like an absolute like brick shithouse, and runs like he's like shot out of a cannon. Now, for a kid of his age to decide out of the blue that he's going to play NRL that way is great. It means that he has now a baseline play style that will get him NRL minutes. When you're willing to run as hard as you are, and enter contact with that level of ferocity, he's going to get NRL minutes where before he was probably going to be an NRL level liability. That's not going to be enough. He's not going to carve out like a long-term career out of that. He's not going to ever push himself into the starting side with that play style. So he's going to have to try to find a way to balance his natural ball playing skills and the things that people liked about him in the first place with this newfound level of like intent with his running game. But I would be willing to like just say to him, pack all that other shit away. You're a prop right now, and you're going to play a role where you're just going to come off the bench in impact minutes and just run straight at them as hard as you can. And I think that he will cause a lot of problems. I would give him heaps of time in the NRL this year. Honestly, I would actually like intentionally like cycle him into the side, even if, even without necessarily there being injuries. I was that impressed with the way he was running, man. Like when was the last time you saw a West Tigers forward run with that level of intent, like Brian Martin Tapau or something?
Yeah. Look, I've seen that from Kit, but it's really only been at schoolboy level. It was really refreshing to see it, and obviously he's got a lot of confidence in his body. I think that probably this preseason they said to him, strip it back to basics. We know you can ball play. We know you've been a lot coming through. Don't worry about, being a leader like he has been in the past. Just run the fucking ball hard. And everything else we'll worry about later. And suddenly, he now looks like the player that we thought he was going to be 2-3 years ago, where he was going to have the 13 jersey. And he was going to be a part of this, quartet with Galvin and De Silva and Mason. He's finally showing it.
Yeah, if there was a mini battle between him and Justin Matamua, I think he's won it.
Oh, well, Justin got relegated to the cup trial, so that tells you all you need to know. Yeah. Look, Kit's still got some work to do on his defense. His lateral movement, as you pointed out, requires some work, but at the same time, I thought that his contact in some places was decent. It's just something that he's going to have to build on, but he now has the physical fitness to build on that and to work on that. And obviously, he's shown that he's put the work in this preseason, which means that, there is a player there that we can improve because he wants to improve. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Credit to Kit, well done, and I really, really hope we see him play at least 5 or 6 first grade games next year. Jarrell Skelton was another guy who played 2 trials. I don't think it was necessarily too much. Look, the hit was great, 5 minutes out from full time, and that's what he brings. He's devastating, and there was also an error that a Parramatta player made because he just looked up and saw Big Jarrell right there. And I certainly would probably do the same, being the park footballer that I am. But the most refreshing thing about Jarrell, despite the fact that he still looks like a bit of a deer in headlights when the opposition has an overlap, is his work rate. The amount of hit-ups that he took in both games, effective hit-ups, might I add, was exceptional. Mac?
Love him so much. One thing we kept going on about during our coverage of the NRL West Tigers in the 2024 season was how abysmal our rucking out of our end was, and how it gave us next to no chance to ever win games because we never got into a decent field position to even put anything remotely resembling an attacking kick in. Problem solved. Like, it's solved. Like, Skelton has solved that. And we have yet to even see Taruva. I think there was episodes that we ran last year where we pointed out that was pretty much the single most biggest issue with the club, and if we could fix that, it would completely change our fortunes. It's unbelievably good signing. Like and I'm so happy that he's actually progressed. Like he's, you could. It seemed almost like too obvious. You bring in this giant guy who, hasn't been able to carve out a role in first grade at the Dogs, and, But he seems like every time he plays first grade, he's just a wrecking ball. And he's a wrecking ball in the lower grades. It's like, how did we get him? How did the most perfect signing that we could possibly make to fix our biggest issue just land in our laps? It's got to be too good to be true. There's got to be an issue. There's got to be like, he hasn't quite yet adapted to the game, or like his fitness is bad or something like that. Nah. Like any weaknesses that he has is more than adequately compensated for by the strengths. And my God, can he hit? Holy shit.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
that and now we've seen it multiple times, so we know that that's a thing. One play in that game that like stood out for me wasn't the one where he made the hit. It was way earlier in the game. It was earlier in the game where Paris spread it to the right, and they threw a bit of a hospital ball at the guy who was playing in the back row. It was no, the guy was playing center at the time. Actually, it might have even been Lomax. Was Lomax right center or left center?
Nah, he'd been subbed off by that point. Another play you're talking about. It's the one I just mentioned where he had a look at Skelton, he dropped the footy, right?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did you mention that? I was reading my phone. Yeah, that play, nuts. Because like it just goes to show that Skelton's already in people's heads. Like that. Like how could he have felt that unless it was just because he watched Skelton's highlight where Skelton belted that guy last year, and then later in the game, Skelton's like, "Yeah, you're very lucky because I did end up belting somebody." Oh
Yeah.
man. The
You know
more
what
he
I
does that,
really
the better for us, because like people are gonna avoid going at him. Like they will. Like not the best of the best. That sort of play, that's the sort of play that'd get a player dropped. But there's plenty of players in the NRL that like are still kind of trying to find their feet that will get found out just by having him in their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's being, I think he's being looked after by Jerome Luai. I think Jerome Luai is going to do a lot of communicating on that edge, and I think that'll help him, and that'll put him in the right positions to make more hits like that. But as well as that, he's phenomenal under the high ball. I think he's really underrated, and I really hope they kick to him this year, in attack, but also when fielding the ball from a defensive perspective, he's pretty safe as well. So very, very excited to see where Jarrell goes. And I typically don't pick Tigers players in my super coach. He is absolutely in there.
Well, yeah, he's good for 200 meters a game and like 8 tackle breaks. Like, he's going to be a super coach must have. There's a very good chance that by the end of the year, he'll be the like highest scoring winger in super coach if he scores enough tries. I think like if the Tigers have a good season, if we make the 8, he's a really good chance of winning Dally M winger of the year if we actually are a good team. I like because it'll him winning Dally M winger of the year will rely on him getting Dally M points. But he's going to get a lot of Dally M points if we win games because he's going to score 2 tries and make 200 meters almost every time we win a game.
That's very true. Yeah, keep an eye out. Very, very exciting times down that left edge. Flipping it to the other side, Stafford Toa, a guy that really he had a good period of footy in 2023. 2024, he just basically couldn't get on it, played 3 games and pretty much pulled up injured in all 3. To see him put together, I think it was about 55 minutes worth of solid first grade, albeit in a trial, was really nice to see. But it was mainly his off the ball efforts that I think you were pretty impressed with, yes?
Yeah, he was really good defensively. Really good defensively. I know you and I are both on the same page. Like the biggest knock on Stafford has been his choices in defense when defending on our own line. Like it's not that he doesn't make the tackle or get there. It's that he always goes for the ankles. And like it just when in a one-on-one situation when you're defending on your line, like that just the ball carrier's arms get free. They'll either reach out, score, or throw an offload, and like that's the ball game. I didn't see that. I saw the correct defensive contact. I thought that he was strong, not like not outstanding in his carries, but strong enough, like more than good enough for that right center position. What we need from a right center at this point in time is NRL average, right? We don't need Justin Hodges. We need just a guy who can not be a liability in that position defensively, who can finish a try, and we know he can finish a try. I'm chuffed. I think that there's a lot of guys who are gonna get a bit of like a career second win because of the energy that's come into the squad, not just from the outside recruits, but also the like floor being lifted by like, you know, the younger guys coming through as well. And Stafford's chief among those. Stafford, Brent Naden, Alex Seafarth, Alex Twall, all these guys who, you know, close to the scrap heap, you know, close to the scrap heap, and suddenly they've got a second wind. And that's you know, Luke Lewis talked about that. I think it was Luke Lewis. No, it was Scott Sattler. Scott Sattler talked about that on their podcast a while ago, about the effect that he felt at Penrith when all of the young guys came in and they won the comp that year, and all the old guys suddenly, like, you know, had a rocket under them, and they, like, you know, realized, you know, oh yeah, I remember what it felt like to be like that, and it reminded them how to win it, and it reminded them how to train. And I've long sort of been of the view, you know, you made it to the NRL, you're a good enough player. And a lot of it from that point forward just becomes around culture and coaching and things like that. So these guys, it should come as no surprise that they can be effective in the NRL. It's always been in them. They wouldn't have even made first grade debuts if they didn't have the skill. So Stafford Toa, tick of approval for mine. Got the jersey for as long as he wants it for now. Like, you know, it'll be his to lose. There's not really anybody pushing down the doors for right center position. So he's he's got a long leash too. So good on him. You know, we saw that game against Val in that Cowboys game, and he pantsed them. And that's the sort of player we want to see every week. If we can see that player every week, then good Lord.
Wouldn't that be nice? Absolutely. I flip it to the other side. I think Adam Dewey's going to be there now, but Brent Naden looked excellent.
He looked great.
Obviously disappointing to see him dislocate his knee, because I think he probably would have had a first grade jersey round one, especially with Olin's medical retirement.
100%.
But look, sometimes this is the way it goes, and I'm really interested to see what the club does in the next couple of months, to see whether or not they prioritise signing a centre mid-season, or whether or not they're going to back Brent, and then by extension, guys like Josh Folletti and Adam Dewey. But look, we send our well wishes to Brent. He seemed like he was in pretty good spirits despite the injury, and he'll be back round 4.
I personally am of the view that Luke Lololi'i would have probably been our left center if he wasn't struggling with concussions. The rumors and the murmurs coming out of the off-season were that he was braining everybody. Now, it doesn't look to me like Jarrell Skelton was ever not going to be the left winger. Like, he looked like he's been the left winger in the first team training the whole time to me. Like, he looked like he had that jersey on lock. Sunia Taruva is always going to be the right winger. If Luke Lololi'i was training as well as he was purported to have, he would have been our left center, I think. And I think personally, God, I want him to get back, because I think, you know, on that left side, if you put him there, he's exactly what we need for Jerome Luai, because there was a few times Adam Dewey just did not run the lines. Adam Dewey's approach is like catch the ball and then decide what to do. He likes to, you know, make a decision. He's a damaging runner even off of a flat start, but Luke Lololi'i gets shot out of a cannon and will hit holes. I think I can't wait till he gets back. I hope he's okay.
I hear that he is going to take some extended time off, and that he's actually consulted a concussion specialist. First things first, for Luke, it's obviously his long-term life, you know, after footy and stuff. So I'm really, really hopeful that he's able to sort that first, and hopefully when the time comes, he's ready to get back on the field, because I agree. He's an exceptional player, and there is just so much to like there. So get well soon, Luke, and hopefully the boys can get a few results in your absence. Let's turn our attention to the junior reps. We'll just knock this over really, really quickly. Wes Harold Mats, I think we're actually their good luck charm. So we disappeared for 2 weeks, and sure enough, they had 2 losses. But if you didn't think it was us, it may well be the absence of one Siatame Havea Jr., who we absolutely love on here. They lost the game to South the first week we were away. A send-off and some disallowed tries really, really hurt them, but there were also some missed assignments defensively. That there was a similar story this week against Central Coast, where they were never really in control and had to chase the game. I see they've moved Yakub Ali Jida, who I'm a massive fan of, to fullback, and swapped him with Tom Goodfield. I'm not too sure what the idea is. It might even be a mandate from the club to see Tommy in the centres. but they may still be working through that from a combinations and cohesion perspective. But they don't really have much time to sort of test it out. They play the 3-1 Steelers this week in a very tough matchup. Did you see much of West in the last couple of weeks, mate?
No, I must admit I haven't really been paying too much attention to the pathways in the last couple of weeks. I was away on business all of last week, so I didn't get a chance to really do much of anything, to be honest. But by the same token, maybe we were the mock on the West SG ball team.
Oh, well, we're back this week, so I'm expecting a win. Balmain, Harold Matz, there was a great come from behind win and a kick from the sideline to seal it against the Dogs. I love the cutout from Isaac Mascarenas, who we've wrapped before the 5-8, and the individual effort from Jared Canaan to get across the line to level the scores before, obviously, the supremely clutch effort from Ben Lawrence to slot that goal from the sideline to win the match was absolutely incredible against a very well-fancied Canterbury side. The week after against North Sydney, there was some great work from the halfback Christian Azzi down the short side for our first 4-pointer, and the try afterwards where he ran the footy and was kind of forced to because the ball was thrown at his bootlaces was pretty nice too. But look, the star of the show was the team. The defensive effort they showed in the second half defies belief. They just constantly turned Norths away, who had some big bodies, mind you, which can be really, really hard to defend in Harold Matz, and they held out. Look, 2 character-building wins for these boys. Sunny Coast on the weekend, who looked really, really good against West. Keep an eye on that one. I think that's going to be a good little match. Let's talk about the main event, our main SG ball.
The main event, SG ball.
4-0. If you'd have told me this time last year that the team running last in SG ball would keep the majority of its spine and a couple of these players and be running first, would have slapped you in the face. Look, this is a testament to the pathway staff, but most importantly, the players. They have worked so hard in the preseason to turn their fortunes around, and my God, they are such a good footy team to watch. Well drilled, well structured, all effort, and there were some great individual performances on the weekend. Blake Van Dree again.
How good is he?
He is in sparkling form. He looks wonderful. Him and Will Stone, they stood up again. Mark Tanos for the game against Penrith after playing in an NRL trial. He obviously thought it was a little bit too easy for him. He was involved in just about every try-scoring play we had. But the one that he just looks like a first grader more and more and more is Xavier Tue Fainga. Exceptional talent. I know you would have watched these boys. What did you see?
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how much I didn't. But being said, I did see the result, and I did send a congratulatory SMS to my best friend Bronson Harrison, who I have to remind has promised to come on the podcast after the season. So it'll be nice to have a chat to him after what is proving to be one hell of an inspiring season. Look, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. They look like a genuine chance to win the SG ball. Like, just they're, as you rightly pointed out, they're good to watch. They're structured. They're well coached. They have striking key positions. They win games without their stars. You know, I don't think you mentioned that. Like, they won the week before without Mark, without Logan Deninja, without Jared Haywood. Against a pretty good side, was it not? Like, so I think, who did they play the week before last? It was a team. It was not a mug team.
Let me find out for you, because sorry, I didn't cover it in
2 weeks in a row that they've won games without Logan, which sucks.
They beat Manly, remember?
That's right. Yeah, they beat Onatoni Larger's side without their best players.
Well, they are. Look, Manly aren't that good.
They beat Onatoni Large, and that's great.
Yeah, that's true.
No, look, I think it is incredible. I think it's Bronson Harrison, mate. Like, I would be chuffed with his coaching development, right? Like, how talented coach must that dude be?
Well, you mean Shane Sultana? Bronson's head of pathways. It's Shane Sultana who's that coach, and he's actually a former New South Wales Cup coach for South Sydney.
Well, I was going to say Bronson because also, like, the Balmain Harold Matthews side is like winning games with like a bunch of dudes that like wouldn't have played in a rep side.
Oh, absolutely. Look, the entire Balmain.
But yeah, Sultana, good on you, mate. Going well,
Look,
Salty.
the turnaround nonetheless has been like nothing you've ever seen.
But I gotta say, you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Xavier Taufainga. I hope I said that right, mate. You are a star, my friend. Keep it up. Smash it. Runs like oh man, he plays center like the perfect. You know what I mean? Like this I don't know. He's just such a
He,
prototype center. I haven't seen a prototype left center. Yeah, we got Marcy, we got Xavier. Oh,
yeah, we
spoiled.
might need Zabe to move to the right. But let's talk about Mussey's team. West SG Ball. They were unfortunate to lose against South, the 2-0 South Sydney, in what was a pretty fun match to watch. And it was good to see Mussey's involvement rate improve. And Christian Torpau-Morse did some good things as well on the back of signing his contract. Congratulations, Christian. But they were finally on the board against St. George. Now, I saw
50-4.
50-4. Now, I saw the score early. It was 4 blot. I'm thinking to myself, oh, God, come on. St. George aren't that good. They scored 3 tries in the space of about 6 minutes. It blew out to about 24-4 at halftime. And I was saying to you, I think I just said, for God's sake, just go on with it. And they did. And you know what? Their for and against is now positive.
Yeah, they might make the finals.
And they sit 10th. They're 2 spots outside the 8.
It's the funny thing about these lower grades, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, not a coincidence that Mussey's involvement's both weeks, becoming more frequent. The team is beginning to put it together, but the entire team looks in a much better place from where it was a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about their direction or lack thereof. I thought that Fungalele did some great things at the back. I really like the look of the number 6, Patrick. He kicks and moves really, really well. I thought Sonny Edwards-Mweke played his best game in SG Ball and scored a try with some really quintessential halfback play. I thought Callum McMenemy was busy. I thought Byron Leopepa was really classy, had some strong carries, scooped the footy off the deck for Mussey to score his first. And then the try he scored, which was immediately out after half time, was beautiful to watch. We split them open via a gorgeous pass from Godinay down the right to our number 15, who I think might have been Denzel playing in the centres. He was tackled. We then shifted the footy about 3 or 4 passes wide. Mussey sucks in 2 defenders, unlocks St. Fuada Mayo down the left edge, and then he threw the ball back inside. If you haven't seen it yet, go and have a look on New South Wales Rugby League TV. It was beautiful. But captain's not from Archie Duncan. He was phenomenal.
Was he good? That's good.
Yeah, he was. I think with Arch, sometimes he just tries a little bit too hard, and it leads to errors or sometimes penalties. And I don't think it's necessarily a discipline thing. It's just simply how bad he wants it for his team and he wants to lead. It felt like he found the correct balance, and he was the Archie that we came to love sort of last year. Ball played a little bit, and was doing some things that we always thought he would bring as a lock, and that's really, really exciting. Absolutely delighted to see these boys get on the board, but far out. It's going to be a tough game against Illawarra and Cade Reid, who is a phenomenal halfback for the Illawarra Steelers. Anything there?
Didn't see the game, so not really. Happy to hear that they had a great win. 50-4 is a great sign. We know how good this side is. They're chocked full of talent, chocked full of like schoolboys championship level talent. They should be winning games and should be winning games well. Let's hope it's a sign of things to come. Fuada Mayo is an all-time great name. And I think that I'm glad to hear Archie Duncan performed well, because he's one of my top 5. So we like that. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, Reedy. I think that Balmain versus West Magpies SG Ball Grand Final is a guarantee.
With 10 plays West.
They'll come good. They won't lose another game.
Look, let's wait and see. Massive game. This weekend, for a lot of our junior reps boys, tune in on Bar TV. If you don't have a subscription, get one. They're going to have all the New South Wales
$6.95 for a 48-hour pass. It's not that bad. Like $6.95. Like you guys all spend more than that on an iced coffee every day.
I'm plugging them like a sponsor, but they're not actually our sponsor. Who is our sponsor, Matt? Give them a quick plug.
Well, Jared, you would be referring to Pinch Payments, Australia's favourite online payments platform. Xero's most highly rated payments platform, specially designed to help you eliminate late payment by automatically collecting invoice payments using the payment method your customers prefer, whether that's cards or direct debit. Simply sign up, it's free. You only pay if your customers pay invoices using Pinch, and you can on-charge the fees, so you can actually use the platform completely for free. Getpinch.com.au.
Hell yeah, brother. Just to finish, Tasha Gale beat Penrith and lost to Newcastle. Lisa Fiaola was the same. They beat Penrith and lost to Newcastle. Both were quite close games. Laurie Daly and Andrew Johns Cup, they had a win a fortnight ago, then a loss. Hopefully all those guys get back on the bounce. Mac,
Round ones are coming. Las Vegas, here we come. We've got some real live NRL action coming your way in a couple of days. It's finally here. Can't wait. Who's going to win the Vegas games, Rudy?
Okay, all right. So what I wanted to do next week was preview every single side, but obviously these sides are going to play. So I just want to give a one-sentence question. You're going to answer it, and then we're going to say where we think they're going to finish this year.
Go.
Raiders, will they be able to deal with the losses of Rapana and Whitehead? I think that Rapana was their spiritual leader and actually helped them win games that they wouldn't have without him. I don't think that they're going to be able to fix that. I've actually got them penciled for bottom 5. Your thoughts?
I think that they'll finish somewhere between 8th and 17th.
Okay, nice. That's very exact. The Warriors, is it a net gain by gaining Fisher Harris and losing Tohu Harris and Sean Johnson? I think they're going to have some teething problems. They got some great young players, particularly their back rowers. But I worry about their outside backs. They're getting a little bit older. I worry about Luke Metcalf's suitability as a halfback. And I also have them pegged for bottom 5. Your thoughts?
I think that they'll finish somewhere between 8th and 17th. No, I'm joking. I think that they are going to be a worse side than they were last year. I struggle to see how they can improve. They have lost 2 very good players and added 1 very good player. They have question marks in many positions. The messaging coming out of that camp is not positive. I think that they're going to have a bad season.
Yes, me too. Who's your tip for that game? I've got the Raiders bouncing back after plastic baseball gate.
I think the Wars will win this game, and it might be the only game they win for a while. But I think that, I don't know, the Wars are going to have all of the traveling fans on their side. They'll be the popular team of the Vegas round. So I think that the crowd might get them home, to be honest.
The Wars have got us round 4. We don't play the Raiders until round 16. Flipping back to these games, the Panthers, I guess the biggest question is, will these losses be the straw that broke the camel's back? So obviously Fisher Harris and Luai, spoiler alert, I think it will be. I think they're absolutely still a top 4 team. But if they lose Nathan Cleary midway through the year the way that they have, I don't think that they have the quality to cover for him. I think they'll be a top 4 team, but I don't think they'll even be playing in the first weekend of October. I've got them falling out in the prelims. Your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I think Penrith's entire success will live or die by how many games Nathan Cleary plays. That's really all there is to it. If he goes down, they're stuffed. Like Luai, they were fortunate Luai found his mojo to play 7. Like that, and you know, that was probably entirely driven just by Jerome Luai having a point to prove to West Tigers fans that he was going to be good for us. They got nothing. They got nothing behind Cleary. Nada. But, you know, if Cleary plays a heap of games, they could still win the comp. Let's be honest. They still could.
Yep.
They're absolutely premiership contenders as long as Nathan Cleary is playing, especially if they don't lose, you know, Dylan Edwards and Kenny and all of those other mugglers. Papa Lee on the bench, that's interesting.
And Garner in the centres. Very interesting. On the flip side, Cronulla, I also think they'll finish top 4. I guess the biggest question is who actually owns this side. Braden Trindle took control at the back end of last year and was phenomenal. And Nico Hines kind of took a back seat. I hear that they're kind of sharing it 50-50, but I always think that that's a recipe for disaster. You very much need to run a dictatorship with your attacking structure, and it needs to revolve around one person. I think Adam Fanua-Blake is going to give them something through the middle that they just haven't had. They've always had very, very solid tradesman-like middles. Fanua-Blake does it all. He's got amazing late footwork. He's got a beautiful offload. He can hit you hard on both sides of the ball, and he will put that team on his back. I think they'll be prelim finals again, possibly grand finalists. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I keep hearing from smart NRL pundits that the Sharks are a genuine premiership contender, and I just don't see it. I think Nico is I don't know, I don't want to say it because it sounds mean, but I honestly feel like he's a net detriment for that whole entire side. Like, they will be a better side if he wasn't in it, in my opinion. I think that his utility value is so much that he's become a tweener, but like such an elite tweener. And what I mean by that is just somebody who can do lots of different things, like good at everything, master of nothing. And now they've kind of built a rod for their own back, trying to like find a position for him. Like, I think that, that side, I would think that that was a better spine if they had Trindle, Atkinson, and Kennedy as the 7, 6, and 1. I know Atkinson's gone now, but like that to me would be a better spine than any spine that has Hines in it based on his 2024 form.
Yeah.
I think that there's a big question mark on how Fitzgibbon handles this, because I feel like the Sharks are the sort of side that's going to either have a couple of bad things happen and then spiral out of control badly, or they'll keep it all together and really push for the premiership. I feel like there's not much in between. Like, this is not going to be a repeat year where they're just sort of like solidly around things, and like, I feel like that it's very make or break. It's the sort of situation where if they don't push through and actually win the comp this year, or like, at least make the GF, like, they're gonna have to seriously think about a rebuild. Because Nick, they can't just keep doing what they've been doing over the last several years. Like, that's just not sustainable. It's kind of like where Parramatta were at, a couple of years ago, where they'd made the premiership, they made the GF, they made the prelims year in, year out, and they couldn't push through, and then they kind of had to just blow it up. I feel like the Sharks are getting close to that same situation. Not so much with the coaching, but with the player group. I think Adam is obviously an elite player, but I don't think he's like really like he's not the sort of bloke who's going to really change much of the player culture there for the good. I don't think the players are going to like get inspired by him.
I don't think they need that though.
Yeah, you look at it and you think that it's just his like skill level is going to take them over the top. But like, what I mean by that is I actually feel like it might be a bit of a net detriment, because like they're like what was good about the Sharks is their workman like attitude. It is their like Hazelton's being spiritual leaders. Like, that sort of stuff is what I felt like was what made the Sharks good. I don't know. Like, it's just something. It feels like a cake that's just got a couple of ingredients all wrong, and it just makes the texture all wrong. Something weird about them I just don't like.
Well, we're going to get a little bit more of an idea of where they're at on the weekend. I look at Penrith with all their injuries and losses and whatnot, and you kind of think, oh, maybe not, but you never write off a champion. And with them going to Las Vegas, it's almost like the next frontier for them to conquer. I smell a Nathan Cleary masterclass. I've got
100% agree with you. I think they're going to flog the Sharks.
yeah, I've got Penrith 1-12, so that's my pick. Anyway, I think we are done. Thank you for joining us for this very extended episode. Sorry we lied about Mark. Sorry that we weren't here last week. We are back. We have one more weekend until the West Tigers ruin our lives again.
We didn't lie. Mark's just a very busy lad. He's a victim of his own success, and we cannot fault him for that.
Absolutely not. Thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you after Team List Tuesday. next week when we finally have our first legitimate team list of the year. We're going to dissect it, preview it, and go through the rest of these clubs in the NRL to our pathways analysis as usual. Like, subscribe, wherever you are, hit the bell. Make sure you do it. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. The rest, comment, tell us what you want to know, and we'll try and do our best. West Tigers Faithful, episode 21. You've been an absolute pleasure. We will speak with you soon.
Hit the music.